verge of a winning season, and they're on the precipice of perhaps challenging for the playoffs, and they don't want to walk away from that, even if they know that Brian Hoyer has struggled, because they don't want to trust those hopes into a rookie. But then the ones that want Manziel, they don't want Manziel to come in and get his feet wet. They, some of which by their own design, some of which by the media hype, they believe that you're going to just come in and ride the white horse. And I got to tell you, I really, really, really do hope that is what happens. You know, one day a quarterback went down, the next day Bernie Kosar started, and the rest was history. So, I mean, those things do happen. We could be talking about the final day of November 2014. Being totally honest and open, we could be talking about that day 10 years from now as the day that things changed, the day that you-know-who became the quarterback and nobody ever looked back since. I'm just saying that is possible just as much as the other side is possible, which is he becomes the next name on the giant list that goes down the back of the jersey, and then they add another one to it in the next season. So it can go either way. But yes, absolutely, the possibility is there. But in neither set of those groups, the ones that want Hoyer and the ones that want Manziel for next week, not even for big long term, I'm talking about for next week, in nobody's equation is losing the games, not continuing to have a good season, and not continuing to challenge for the playoffs, whether you get there or not. And I'm like, see, this is where it just becomes a you can't win no matter which way it goes. So you very, very much have the possibility here of things of either going, like I said, Manziel could ride the white horse, but at the same time, things can go the other way, and then you just end up, hey, then you know where you got to go, I guess, and that's the question. It just, to me, was so much, is so much, and what can you do? You can't force a losing season if it's not there. It's the matter of where it is, but it'd be so much easier to be having this conversation right now at 4-7, at 5-7, than it is right now. So we're going to get into that here. John McMullen from the Sports Network, he's going to join us, and I'm sure he's got quite a few things to say about this as well. We'll talk about what is perhaps the inevitable decision going down this week, the Browns and the Bills, and what was a defensive battle. Yes, that's right, Charles. He's not going to ride the horse. He's going to ride a white swan in. Regardless, hey, listen, man, I don't care if that swan flies in with golden wings and then drops him from a parachute to midfield. If he can win some football games, I'm all for it, man. I'm all for it. That's where the conversation gets a little stickier. We're going to talk about all of that with you guys. We're going to open up the phone lines. Matter of fact, I'm going to fire up the phone lines here in a few minutes. We'll load those up. We're going to talk to Dan Wismar as well from the Cleveland Fan, and we're going to, you know what? I love each and every one of you guys' opinions, but there's certain people, and I'm sorry, man, when your entire existence in life is to hope that the Cleveland Browns move out of town, I invalidate every word that you say about the franchise, because all you want is the absolute worst for that team. So I do know who everybody is and what their opinions are, and some get much more validation to me than others. We're going to open up those phone lines. We're going to get your opinions here. We're going to talk about all of that. Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan's going to be here. We're going to talk about the Buckeyes, the game with Michigan. We're going to talk about JT Barrett, as I mentioned there, goes out. I mean, really bad weekend for quarterbacks all the way around here for your Northeast Ohio teams. Does that change your thoughts? We'll talk about Cardale Jones here. He brings a different skill set, that's for sure. He brings a different skill set to it, and you got a Big Ten title game. How will the committee look at this as well? A lot of people think that this is going to make a difference in whether they would have perhaps given that slot to the Ohio State Buckeyes. We're going to talk about all of that. We'll talk about the Monsters, the Buckeyes, the Vikings, all kinds of things going on this past weekend. We're going to open up the phone lines here in a few minutes for you guys, and so much more. So let's do it. Welcome into the Sports Fix here on a Monday. Getting rolling here. Let's open up the phone lines, you guys. I am, of course, your host, the Big Daddy on the microphone, J-Rock Jerry Myers. Each and every weekday at noon, live right here on the Sports Fix Radio Network. Another day kicking off, and I'm so glad to be here with you guys. Whether you're listening on TuneIn and TuneIn's radio app worldwide, whether you're listening on Spreaker and Mixler and their digital applications, or perhaps you're listening on digital delay 24/7 on iHeartRadio, the world's largest internet radio provider, on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, SoundCloud, all of the other podcast formats, the ways that you join the show. Thank you so much. As I said, when we come back from the break here, I'm going to crack open the phone lines, 216-539-7535, 216-539-7535 is the number to call. Be a part of the show. I'm going to open up the phone. Second segment, 216-539-7535. If you can't get to the phones, we have literally gotten hundreds of comments over the weekend on Facebook and Twitter. Use your social media and join them. Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at thesportsfixcle and email us thesportsfix@AOL.com. And you know what, guys? Absolutely. I see a couple of you guys there. I wanted to go into the break here. We're going to come back and talk about some football here, and I'm going to open up the phone lines. It's the reason why that you guys have been calling, and nobody's opened up the lines yet, because I wanted to wait until we come back, because of course over the weekend, the hell with Johnny Manziel and Brian Hoyer and JT Barrett and all of that stuff. That's football. The Ohio State Buckeyes, you guys know, nobody's dropping any news on you here. We talked about it Friday. The search going on all weekend long for the Buckeyes senior defensive lineman and wrestler as well, Kosta Karageorge, and man, just the worst ending possible. Most tragic ending you can expect, as he was found passed away over the weekend, apparently at his own hands. We talked about his depression issues. He had sent text messages. As a matter of fact, he sent a text message to his parents on Wednesday of last week, the day before Thanksgiving, apologizing if he had in any way been an embarrassment. And right there was the tip-off to his family that something was wrong, and he was found over the weekend yesterday and identified. And just, you know what? It's sad no matter what. It's just sad whether he played football or not. It's sad whether you knew who he was or not. And then you look at the weekend. It's Thanksgiving weekend. I mean, think about his family and friends, and his family especially. I mean, yeah, friends are great, but I mean, think about that. It's a holiday. It's Thanksgiving. It's one of the only ones that's all about family and all the. It's just an amazingly tragic story, with the worst ending possible. I remember Friday night at the game. I was doing the football game the other night, and there was a bunch of us talking about that in the press box, and you could just tell everybody was avoiding talking about, the inevitable. And then finally somebody said it. It was like, you just don't see a good ending coming for this, and especially in today's era of accessibility and social media and stuff. Once a couple of days went past, you just really started to get that feeling in your gut that this was not going to have the good, positive, happy ending that people hoped it did, and it didn't, and it turned out to have the worst. And I'm telling you guys, trust me, I may come on here every day just because I drink 2 gallons of coffee. Literally, you should see this new giant coffee cup that I got. It holds a whole pot of coffee. But jokes aside, just because I do that and I come in here fired up every day, even I get a wee bit depressed at the world from time to time, and I know everybody else out there does too, man, and it gets tough, man. But find somebody to talk to, man. Hit me up. Say, J-Rock, Daddy, I got some problems. I mean, I may charge you for the couch time, but no, seriously, find somebody to talk to, because there's got to be somebody to talk to. And I know, and I'm sure a lot of you out there do, and maybe you don't too, but they're not feeling like you have somebody to talk to and not being able to talk to, man, that's one of the worst feelings in the world. So again, to the entire Karageorge family, my thoughts and prayers. Nothing much else can be said at that point. A terrible ending to a terrible situation, and the timing still, holiday weekend. I mean, think about, that's something that you'll never forget anyway, because it's your son, your relative, whatever. But then for it to always be connected with that weekend as well, I gotta tell you, tough on everybody, not just tough on the people left behind too. That's something that people don't think about. All right, guys, I'm going to take a break off of that, and we're going to come back and we'll pick things up, and we're going to, speaking of that coffee, I'm going to stick that IV in my arm. Let's take this thing back up and we'll talk some football. Starting off, Browns and Bills. We'll get into yesterday's game, and the move has been made, and then we'll do it. Let's talk Browns, Buckeyes, a lot of things. A lot of hoops went on over the weekend, some hockey. Let's do it. And now The phones are open. 216-539-7535. When we come back, we're talking Browns, Johnny Football, Brian Hoyer, and more. Don't go anywhere. John McMullen, Dan Wismar, and more coming on tap. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on the Sports Fix.
This is the Sports Fix.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
They call me Mr. Pig!
We'll call you whatever you like, as long as we can call you a fan of the Sports Fix.
Sports Fix listeners, you've heard me talking about it. Millionaires being made all season long at DraftKings.com, America's favorite one-week fantasy football site. I've been playing there too. It's now J-Rock's favorite one-week fantasy football site. What's one-week fantasy football? That means no season-long commitments. Play whenever you want. Have a player who's hurt? That's no problem at all because you change everything week to week. Injuries don't derail your chance at victory. It's a new season every week. You're never stuck with the same players. You can pick your team in just minutes and be on your way to winning huge cash. This season, one listener turned $10 into $5,000. Another turned $2 into $10,000. And a new millionaire has been crowned nearly every week this season at DraftKings.com. You could be next. Imagine winning $1 million in one day. $1 million just for playing fantasy football at DraftKings.com. Head to DraftKings.com now and use promo code Spreaker to play for free in the $10 million Fantasy Football World Championships. DraftKings.com. Bigger events, bigger winnings, bigger millionaires. Enter Spreaker now at DraftKings.com.
Sports Fix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize. I mean, a really real prize. Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs. There's literally only one place to go. FantasyJocks.com.
It's just an old ball, really. Nothing more. We grew with it and studied it. We owned it and shared it. We prayed they would hit it and miss it. We prayed they would catch it and drop it. We wanted it to bounce and fly, speed up and slow down. We prayed it would come to us, and we wanted to give it away. We have watched it weather storms and bask in the sun. And it's always right here in our hands. Cleveland Indians, established 1901.
Hey everybody, this is Jerry the King Lawler from WWE, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
That right. It's December 1st. It's the Brown season. Of course it's all aboard the crazy train. I mean, it might have took a while to get here, but here we go. I mean, welcome to Cleveland Browns football, baby, the 2014 edition. Welcome back in. J-Rock back with you as we roll on here, and you know what? We're going to get into that conversation, and I'll go back to what I said at the beginning of the show, man. What is, and what's done is done. I'm not going to sit here. I'll make my opinions felt, but I'm not going to spend 2 hours a day arguing somebody else's decisions. Like, I've learned a long time ago that you get along a lot better in life when you fight the fights that you can win. And I'm not saying you don't engage in the ones that you can't, but you learn when to dig in and when to dig a trench. We'll talk about that though. We're going to talk about all of this. Browns, Bills. It went down yesterday. The Bills defeated the Browns. Browns lost yesterday in a game that I'll tell you, defensively, they definitely didn't deserve to lose that game, but at the end of the day, they did. And we'll talk about it. Some tipping points in that game. Terrence West fumble, a big one that really tipped the